welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm going to tell you all about the workshop weekender that the Women Drivers Social Club had a few weekends ago. I feel like the theme of this year for the Women Drivers Social Club is very much making sure that people feel comfortable and confident if they want to work on their cars. We obviously had the restoration show earlier this year, and then we've had the workshop weekender, which has been a fantastic opportunity for people to have a go at working on their cars around other people that have got perhaps a bit more knowledge and experience than them in different areas, so that we can share that sort of knowledge and experience, but also people that are not judgmental or in any way condescending about the things that you don't necessarily know about your car. And it's been a really fantastic addition to the Women Drivers Social Club lineup. So let's get into how it even happened. So when the Peterborough branch was still quite active, unfortunately there wasn't enough people going along to it that were willing to take on some of the roles that were associated with running a branch. So it kind of is no longer an official group, but there is a few of them that still meet up. And when it was really active, there was this family that came along with an absolutely stunning Morris Minor van that was all sign written up for their campsite, and spoke to them a couple of times about their campsite and the van and things like that. And then they organised a kind of barbecue and workshop day at their campsite, because on their campsite they have their home and their workshop as well. So they did a kind of day working on a couple of Morris Minors, using the ramp that they've got in their big workshop, and a little barbecue and stuff like that. And unfortunately I wasn't able to go along because I had already booked onto something else for that weekend, but everyone was saying how wonderful it was, and how helpful it was, and it kind of sparked this idea in my head of a bit of a workshop weekend. So camping on their campsite, and then making use of the workshop. And it was actually something that I tried to do whilst I was still running the Morris Minor Young Members, but unfortunately timings and stuff didn't work out, and didn't manage to get it in whilst I was still helping out with that. But I kept the idea in the back of my head, floated it with the Women Drivers Social Club last year at one of our camps, and the response was really quite popular and people really liked the idea of it. And so I got back in touch with Sarah and Richard and said, is there any way that you would still be interested in doing this with us? And they were 100% on board, so helpful, so engaged with the concept, and really keen for it to go ahead. And their campsite is conveniently close to me, but also decently central, so it worked out really well for that. And so there was quite a lot of interest, and in fact I think it possibly goes on record as our biggest attended camp so far. We had 22 people booked on, and therefore an absolutely fantastic turnout, and lots of people who had the opportunity to learn from each other. So we put the tickets out in, I think it was January or March time, like I said, had a lot of interest and a lot of people hearing about it as we continue to post about it on the group, really liking the idea of it and coming along. So often when I put these events up, there'll be this kind of big flurry of people that have been to stuff before that immediately book on in kind of the first week. But this had kind of the longest tail on after that point of people continuing to book on and be interested in coming along. So that was really fantastic to see, and a lot of new names as well. People that had perhaps only been to one of our one-day events, or people that hadn't actually made it to any of our events at all, which is always fantastic, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that with the Women Drivers Social Club, usually when people have been along to one thing, they want to keep coming and enjoying it, but it is a big scary thing a lot of the time to come along to that first thing, having not met anybody, not known anybody, and feeling like you can be part of what's been going on and fit in. But I think we do a decent enough job of it, and there's been a lot of talk on the group of people saying that they were made to feel welcome and really enjoyed the weekend. So I think we've done well with the number of new people feeling welcome and wanting to come back to more in future. So in terms of how it all panned out, I set off around lunchtime from my house on Friday and took the grand total of about 25 minutes to get from my house to the campsite. And like I said, it's a really great campsite. They have got kind of this section of a field that they keep relatively available for rallies and groups and stuff like that, that's a bit sectioned off from the main kind of campsite area, so that you're not disturbing them, but that you can have a nice gathering and make use of a great space. So if you are looking for, I would say maybe a maximum of 20 tents, 20 or caravans or whatever. If you're looking for something like that, do look into home farm touring at Baston Fen and speak to Sarah there about what you're looking for your car group or caravanning group or whatever it might be. And we get there and Claire is already there and Sarah is already there, and so we start to gradually get ourselves set up on the field. They've also put up a little marquee for us to make use of, which was invaluable because it was a slightly damper than usual weekend for our camps, so it meant that we were able to sit in it in the mornings when it was still drizzly, and also stay up in the evenings and be able to keep talking and stay a bit warmer than we have in the past as well. So hugely grateful to them for sorting that out for us, because it did make a big difference. Gradually we started to fill up the camp field and get all of our tents and stuff all set up, and people were arriving kind of from about 2 o'clock all the way through till about 8 o'clock in the evening, depending on how far they'd come, whether they'd taken the day off or they'd come kind of after work. And the thing I really love about when we go camping with the Women Drivers Social Club is no one's ever putting a tent up by themselves if they don't want to. There was always a second, third, fourth pair of hands that are happy to step in and help you get your tent up. In fact, Sarah has a tent that is shaped like a VW camper van bus, and she cannot put that tent up by herself, and the Women Drivers Social Club events are one of the only events that she brings that tent to, because she knows that there will be people willing to help and pop the tent up for her. So she can have fun in her VW shaped tent. We spent Friday evening catching up, crafting, making friendship bracelets and crocheting and things like that in the marquee, and it was really great to have a bit of a chat, get to know people, hear a bit more about their cars and their areas of interest, their areas of concern with what they were working on, and those sorts of things, so that we could plan out the following day. We did have a bit of a plan for the following day, but had left a lot of the afternoon free for essentially tinkering. Like I said, the marquee proved incredibly helpful in keeping people warm and awake, and we didn't really end up going to bed, the majority of us, until gone 11, maybe 11:30, because we just hadn't realised the time and had been having such a good time. But we headed off to bed, and it was quite a windy and wet night that first night. The tents were certainly feeling a little bit of it, but it wasn't cold, and that's always far worse. I don't mind the wind and rain as long as I can get the tent down dry eventually, and as long as I'm warm, and I was most certainly warm. Me and my sister were sharing my tent for this one, having left the boys at home for the weekend, and we were plenty warm enough with all of our blankets. In fact, at points we were a little bit too warm. Saturday morning, we all get up and hang out in the marquee for a little bit as it's raining, so that we can all have our bits of breakfast and things like that before we head over to the workshop. For the first workshop session, we had Claire Atkinson and Claire Brooks doing a bit of a demonstration on gearboxes. Many of you will have heard of Claire Atkinson and Claire Atkinson Associates if you have A series or Type 9 gearboxes or some VW gearboxes. She is pretty well known at this point as the gearbox wizard for being able to rebuild and put together fantastic gearboxes with a really good warranty. But I think for many of us, even just understanding how a gearbox works, how it goes together, understanding why when it's making a certain sound that might mean something else, is really useful information for us to perhaps drive mechanically more sympathetically, and also be able to know when your gearbox might need a bit of work, when your gearbox might need some improvement. And the talk was really useful for that. They brought along a gearbox that had come apart, exploded, and dismantled it to show us kind of, well, these parts go together, that's how you're in neutral, that's how you're in a gear, this is what synchromesh is, how synchromesh works, all of those sorts of things. And so we all came away much better understanding of gearboxes and how they work, and how to know if your gearbox might be in need of a bit of attention, and how you might have to go about putting that all back together. Then we followed up with Katie from Wench and Wrench, giving people a bit of a rundown on how to go about diagnosing issues with their car at the side of the road. If they've broken down, if something's stopped, if it's not running as expected, what to go through when you've got those sorts of issues. And there was lots of useful information there. Again, it's just reiterating and giving some people that confidence that actually checking these things isn't too difficult. You might as well have a go if you're sat there waiting anyway, just to see if there's anything you can do if your car does break down. She also gave us some information about how to read tyres, about how to tell how old tyres are, and obviously the information about when's best to invest in some new tyres for your vehicle. And all very useful, and it did make a few people go, oh, I think I should probably double check that on my car and see whether I need a new set for it. Then after that we had the opportunity to basically make use of the workshop however we liked, and so we brought in 4 or 5 cars to all have little bits and pieces done, and people were all just kind of mucking in, helping out, passing spanners, whatever might be, to get several little jobs done on a few of the vehicles. We had a few little jobs that were being done on Slinger Gazelle that belonged to Merrin. We had a few jobs being done on the VW camper that belonged to Vicky. We had Jen's Morris Minor come up to have a little bit of bits and pieces done to it, but it turned out that Richard had just taken out of one of his project cars some front seats that were an exact match for Jen's interior, where she had non-matching seats as it stood, and so she was able to hand over a small amount of cash and come away with 2 much improved seats for her Morris Minor, which was a fantastic bonus that she was then able to fit there and then in the workshop, which was great. We had a few bits doing on the MX-5 that belonged to Holly, and we had a few little bits done on the Riley that belongs to Alex. So a decent mix of vehicles, lots of little bits and pieces being done and ticked off, making people a bit more confident, having that second pair of eyes to do a job that you in concept know how to do but have never done yourself is always a good bonus to have, and makes working on these things a little bit easier going forwards. Once you've done perhaps an oil change with a second pair of eyes, or learn how to check the health of your battery, you'll be in a much better position to have to do it again. And it's been great to see, well, a lot of people got most of their jobs done over the weekend. There were still a few things that they were going to have to go home and do, and they've had the confidence to have a go at doing them afterwards and share with the group in their successes, which has been brilliant. Once we wrapped up with our time in the workshop, we all cleaned up, got changed, and headed out for a little drive to Brightside, somewhere that I seem to be spending an inordinate amount of time lately, but we headed out there. They had an open mic night, so we were able to enjoy a little bit of live music and some great food in the lovely warm and dry surroundings of Brightside, and then had a decent drive back as well, just enough to kind of get out, stretch the car's legs a bit, and have a bit of fun before we headed back to the campsite for the evening. And again, making fantastic use of that marquee to stay warm and dry into the evening as well. Sunday morning, it was time to dismantle camp. There was a few people that were doing last minute bits and pieces on their cars, including myself and my sister. We had to fit a glass cover for her rear registration plate light. My dad had handed it to me to pass on to her and to get it fitted. So we decided, rather than doing it at the workshop, because it was glass and part of the problem with the last fitting is that it had fallen and smashed, we did it on the grass of the campsite and managed to get it all nicely fitted without too much issue. Then we all got in a nice long convoy of all of the cars and headed on to a lovely farm shop, where we essentially descended on them, had a good wander around, and then got some brunch before we all headed on our way. And I had the incredibly long journey of about 15 minutes from the farm shop to my house, although interestingly it's not a farm shop that I had been to before, so I was quite pleased to have discovered a lovely little place for a bit of brunch, should I need that at some point. Everyone headed off home, and it was great to see the messages coming in of people having made their way home safely, things having been improved perhaps by the bit of tinkering that they had done for their cars over the weekend, or perhaps more comfortable seats for the drive home that had made it much more bearable. And it's been great to see that chat on WhatsApp carrying on and supporting each other on various different topics and issues, and also enabling each other on various things like looking at new vehicles and camper vans and things like that. But all in all, I think it was a pretty decent success, and there was a lot of talk of, can we do this again next year? So it looks like that we'll be switching up, at least for the next year, to keep the workshop weekender in as one of the camping weekends for the Women Drivers Social Club, and then having a more driving round and touring one for a different weekend. But overall, I'm so pleased that everyone enjoyed themselves, that people have come away a bit more confident with their vehicles and have enjoyed working on them together. And I look forward to seeing more of it at next year's one as well. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about it, and if you know any women drivers, or are a woman driver yourself who thinks you might be interested in coming along to more of our events, then be sure to check us out on Facebook for all of the event details, and you can get more of an idea of the stuff that we get up to after the fact when we post about it on our Instagram account. In the meantime, thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.